It's Monday in Tryon, North Carolina. It was a beautiful morning. We had a thunderstorm this afternoon and cooled things down very nicely. It's very pleasant outside right now. The storm's passed by. This whole area has needed rain badly. And we can't complain about the rain because we really did need it. We've been eating plums off of our plum tree. We've been having tomatoes off of our tomato plants. And we even had a cucumber off our cucumber vines. So it's been a fruitful year this year in our garden, with the exception of our peach tree. We didn't get a single peach again this year. So I don't know. We have to do like the scripture says. We may have to plow around it, fertilize it, give it one more year, and then cut it down and not let it take up the space in the garden. I don't know. We'll see. We're in Proverbs chapter 4. And we've been looking at father's instructions to his son. We don't know if these are the instructions Solomon gave his son or whether these are the instructions he got from his father David, but we do know they're good, righteous instructions. And we know that the whole purpose of Proverbs is to teach us the way of righteousness. And we also know that the first 9 chapters are pretty much written to young people. And I started this series because of a young man named Seth who really said he wanted a good devotion, and I'm hoping that he's staying with me on this devotion series through Proverbs, because these are great instructions for a young man like Seth and for any young man. Chapter 4, verses 1 through 9 were 7 points of instruction to be a winner. I've been watching the Olympics, as some of you probably have, the trials for the Olympics, and those young people want to be winners. And here the father's instructing the son the way to be a winner. And I believe that this is even more important instruction than anything that a gymnast could learn from his teacher. As we start out in chapter 4, verse 10, it says, "Hear, my son, listen." And we talked about this before. How many times have your parents said, "Are you listening to me? Listen, hear, my son." But then he goes on and he says, accept. Not just hear them, but accept them as being right. And we know that when you do that, when you listen to the ways of God, your life will be a blessing. It will be many years. Well, maybe not many years from the standpoint of never having gotten cancer or never getting hit by a car, but the years of life will be quality years. And he goes on in verse 11 and he says, directed. I directed you in the way of wisdom. Now, that means I gave you the direction of wisdom. I gave you the basic principles of wisdom. But wait a minute, there's more here in verse 11. It says, and I led you in the upright path. You see, we fathers and mothers not only need to direct our children to the right ways, but we need to lead them. We need to set the example. And it's very, very important to not just speak what is right, but to do what is right, because our children learn more by our example than they'll ever learn by our instruction. So we see this very wise father saying, I not only directed you, but I led you. And when you walk that way, you'll not be hindered. You'll not have anything get in your way. If you run, you not stumble. And that's a pretty good outlook, that when we follow the path of righteousness, we're not going to be hindered from righteousness. We're not going to stumble if we run. He says in verse 13, take hold of my instructions, make it yours. Not my instructions, make them be your instructions. And do not let go. Hang on to those principles, hang on to those instructions. He says, take hold of them and don't let them go. Guard that instruction because it'll give you life. Do not enter the path of the wicked, it says in verse 14. But it goes on beyond that, and it says, do not proceed the way of the evil ones. So do not enter the path, but also do not proceed the way of evil. Avoid altogether, and don't even get near that path of the wicked. Turn away from it. What does Timothy say? Says, avoid, run, flee from temptation. Do not proceed the way of the wicked man. Do not go near the path, and you'll be much better off. Then he compares the wicked with the righteous. In verse 16, he says, they can't sleep unless they do evil. In other words, their lifestyle is evil. They can't sleep unless they cause someone to stumble. It's amazing to me how those that are doing wicked things want to drag others along with them. They want to encourage others to do the same evil that they do. That's why we have gangs. What is a gang? A gang is an evil person who has gathered others around them and encouraged them to do wrong things. Boy, Chicago, some of the big cities that have so many gangs, the young people that are following those wicked ways ought to read Proverbs, shouldn't they? So he says, compare and look at the wicked. They can't sleep unless they're doing evil. They cause others to stumble. And their lifestyle, the bread that they eat and the wine that they drink, is wickedness and violence. That's their lifestyle. Their lifestyle is wickedness and violence. There are people going around with a chip on their shoulder, daring people to knock it off. And if they don't, they'll push them. But there's a very important word that falls between chapter 4, verse 17, and chapter 4, verse 18. Look at the contrast. The path of the righteous is like light of dawn. Now, I don't know about you, but we live up here on the top of the mountain. There are no street lights, and when the moon's behind the clouds or the moon is not out, it gets mighty dark up here. But the path of righteousness is like the light of dawn, and it gets brighter and brighter until it's full day. That's what happens when you start following God's way. It gets clearer and clearer until it's full brightness of day. And it says the wicked love the darkness, and the wicked are in the darkness, and they don't even know what they stumbled over. If you were to go out in our yard right now and it would be pitch black outside and you were wandering around in the darkness like the wicked people and you suddenly stumbled, you wouldn't know whether it was my wheelbarrow, the rake, or something else I had left out in the yard because you couldn't see a thing. And that's the picture, the contrast that it gives here of a righteous person walking in bright daylight, being able to see and prevent stumbling, but the wicked walk in darkness and they don't even know the things that they're stumbling over. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.